Hello, my name is Jacob Libby. I'm a hand therapist, a occupational therapist. I specialize in the orthopedics of the hands, and I work with hand surgeons. I have a long story with the orthodontic situation with my own body. When I was 9 and 10 years old, I received orthodontics to pull my upper jaw inward because I had buck teeth. It was done in such a way that braces were put on the top. My top was pulled in. I didn't receive any treatment to adjust the orientation between the upper and lower jaws. So I ended up with a good occlusion, but which required my lower jaw to retract almost to the total extreme of its capacity before I could close my mouth. So I had this mismatch between my occlusion and the centeredness of my TMJ in the back. But I didn't know this. I knew that I stopped being able to talk socially with ease. I know that I became very sort of introverted, anxious, depressive, things like that. That would just generally be associated with an adolescent hormonal change or something like that. I only thought of it in those terms. But about 12 years later, when I was in Beijing and I was studying Mandarin intensively, 8 hours a day in classes with very talented classmates, and I was constantly sort of inside of my mouth watching people's mouths, trying to figure out how to pronounce things. At that time, I came to have a bodily awareness of the disjointedness that was happening in my mouth. I saw the ease with which other people were articulating and speaking. I reflected on that for several years, paid out of pocket in my early 20s and my late 20s 2 times to receive traditional orthodontic work. This traditional orthodontic work put braces on top and bottom and try to use rubber bands to orient the top and bottom. Both doctors did it because I paid out of pocket, because I pushed for it, and they told me that it was impossible to accomplish what I was asking for, which was a reorganization of my teeth so that the relationship between the occlusion and the temporal mandibular joint was correct, so that I could close my mouth without an incredible amount of force and tension. Some of my symptoms as I grew older were chewing on my cheeks, grinding my teeth. I chipped my teeth because my relax point as far as my jaw was with my front teeth bumping into each other. I had very limited social verbal endurance. So if I had a job that required talking, by the end of the day I couldn't talk. The musculature in my head was so exhausted that I would sound kind of drunk. I would slur my words, and it was very frustrating. And I still didn't have a strong sense of whether what I was feeling was real. I could feel the problem in my mouth. It was as if someone had put rocks in my mouth and at gunpoint refused to let me remove those rocks. And what that means is, when I felt relaxed here, these teeth were in the way of each other. When these teeth were lined up nicely, there was an enormous amount of tension in my jaw. The two things didn't fit together. The two parts of me couldn't be relaxed simultaneously. Neither of the two treatments in my early 20s and my late 20s worked. And I was left with the same problem. And I kind of resigned myself to it. I happened to meet Dr. Tanner. Incidentally, about 2 months before I met Dr. Tanner, had an improvement in my professional career and suddenly had enough money to think about searching for alternatives. So I met with an orthodontist in Eureka, California. He was an older orthodontist. He looked me in the eyes after I explained my problem. He told me he thinks he understands my problem, but only intuitively, then pointed to a row of his orthodontist textbooks and said, none of those books describe your problem. None of those books provide a method for evaluating, assessing, measuring your problem, and none of those books give me any means to fix your problem. But I've noticed over the course of my career that this is a real thing. And he sent me on my way with some advice for holistic dentistry, mouth surgery, jaw surgery, and some other options, and at least a little bit of a feeling of sympathy. And then I happened upon Dr. Nathan Tanner's office a few months later, and I looked through his materials. I listened to the reports from his other patients. I looked at the physical device that he was going to use to expand the front of my jaw and my skull forward in order to open space for my larger lower jaw, so that it could occlude while my temporal mandibular joint was relaxed. I saw the device, and the device was exactly what, over all of those 2 decades of thinking about this, I had dreamed might be a possible thing. It was exactly what I had hoped for. And I looked at the series of photographs of his patients. It was exactly what I felt that I needed. And so I started the process. Within 2 or 3 months, I could speak more clearly. I could speak more quickly. I snored less. I was more relaxed. People that knew me saw that told me that my mood, especially at the end of a long day, was more relaxed, more focused, more open. I really actually couldn't have sat here and gone through all of this and hardly misspoke. Like, you may have noticed that a few times I didn't enunciate a word quite correctly. In the past, I would have seemed maybe a little bit mentally off to you, because I would have made so many mistakes in pronunciation and had so many false starts and flow, the rhythmic flow of my sentences. And I probably wouldn't have been able to hold this narrative together for as long as I just have. Maybe I could have for 60 seconds while expending enormous amounts of energy pulling my jaw into the position where my occlusion was correct. But after a little while, the exhaustion would have set in. I would have had shakiness in my musculature, and I would have had to stop. So my life is like infinitely better. My life is so very much better. Dr. Tanner is doing exactly what I had always hoped and dreamed somebody would think of a way to do. The last thing I'd say is I would love to help in any way, to help to advocate for what he's doing, and to help communicate to others the deep wisdom and intelligence that goes into what he's doing. Yeah, those big spaces signify the degree to which the front part of my mouth and my bone structure has grown forward. Those gaps were not there before, and those gaps gave my whole mouth and jaw room to function correctly.